Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the E-commerce Evolution podcast. I'm your host, Brett Curry, CEO of OMG Commerce. And today I have a treat for you. We are going to hear just a fantastic e-commerce brand story. I've got two co-founders of an amazing company on the show today. These are guys that I know their product and their company intimately. We actually help them with some of their marketing, and so I've gotten to know them over the years, and I'm just delighted that you'll get to hear behind the scenes of their story. Lots of lessons that you can learn. I think you'll be inspired for maybe your next evolution as a company. So all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah.
With that, I would like to welcome to the show co-founders of Original Grain Watches, Andrew and Ryan Beltran. Ryan and Andrew, how's it going, fellas?
Hey.
Doing well. Yeah.
Hell of an introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Really excited to have you guys. And in all sincerity, I am a fanboy of the watches. We can talk about specifics later. I own a watch. My son owns a watch. We are big fans. And so lots we can dive into. I think it would be interesting to hear the story of how you guys got started. And we'll also talk about, what's going on in the world today. Because as we record this, I think we're all in coronavirus lockdown.
Yeah,
and,
we're in the thick of it here. Yeah.
And it's just interesting time. So I think there's some things we can talk about to help folks navigate the waters right now.
Definitely.
But if you would, guys, kind of tell us the origin story. Why start a watch company? And so you guys started in 2013, correct?
Yeah, 2013. We actually launched with a Kickstarter through crowdfunding, but we're brothers, so I guess the story starts back in 1991 when Andrew was born.
Yep.
We're 2 years apart. 2 years apart.
So you're the older, wiser brother. Is that right, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm the older, wiser. Andrew got the looks and the height, so I don't know. You got to get something here. So.
Look at that. Andrew's showing the profile, showing the beard. That looks good.
Yeah,
it looks real good. That's amazing. So seriously though, but as you guys were growing up, did you talk about being in business together? Did you guys have a lemonade stand or something like that?
Yeah, I was talking about this last night. We had a few little small businesses, as kids, whether it was mowing lawns, or just even power washing houses.
That's a great business, the lawn mowing business.
Yeah, our dad was a painter, so every summer we were painting houses and kind of just working together. We're kind of a tandem. We always did everything together. Ryan always led the charge. I was always hanging out with the older kids, so I felt cool. But yeah, we played ball together. Grew up playing sports. So we coming from a small town in Oregon, there wasn't this whole we're going to launch global watch company.
Right.
But, we did envision growing up, raising families together. So it's just kind of a natural evolution, I think, as we grow up.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love the service-based industry. It's a great business to get started. I mowed lawns as a kid. My son did. Great way to build some revenue, pure cash business. And so you said you played ball together. I'm just curious. I'm into sports as well. What kind of ball did you play?
Yeah, it was basketball. Always growing up. Our stepdad coached us, and I played on Ryan's team all the way till high school. And then we had some glory days there. At Creswell High School, so some good news articles. Beltran Bros lead the way.
Is that right?
Yeah, that was
state appearances and stuff like that.
Yeah. So.
No kidding. I did not know this about you guys. I got to watch myself because if I'm not careful, we'll do just a basketball podcast.
Just X's and O's. We'll be talking about offenses, back cuts.
Exactly. I actually so I played in high school. I was not at your level, I don't think, but I played, and then I actually coached my son's basketball team.
That's the best.
So varsity team. It was really intense. Last 2 years I coached. It was a lot of fun. And basketball is a huge part of our life as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So cool. So you guys mowed lawns, painted houses, wanted to raise a family together. So walk us through, where did this idea for a global watch company, where did that come from?
Yeah, so that one fast forwards 20 years actually on the dot. I never start with the 1991 thing. That was a new thing for this show, but I kind of like it.
I like it. I'm going
to use it.
You heard it here first. Okay.
Yep. Actually in 2011, I moved to Hong Kong, southern China, really actually in mainland. After graduating from college, I went to the University of Oregon in our hometown, Eugene, and decided that I wanted to kind of try this entrepreneurial thing for real, start a brand. And I knew that majority of products were made in China.
Absolutely.
You know, so I felt like it was like a scene from Blow, like go to the source, but not for that, but for product. And I'm like, let's just see what happens. And so I spent 3 years on the ground there, and about a year into that stint, I came across the product, which was a wood watch. And I thought, well, this is really cool. This is different. And it kind of reminded me of home, growing up in the Northwest, wood thing. And but you know, this can be a lot better. How could I innovate on this a little better? And thought, well, why not just incorporate wood as a material rather than like this felt a little gimmicky to me, to like an all wood watch.
Like a fully wood watch. Yeah. And I've held some fully wood watches, and they do feel a little gimmicky. They don't feel very weighty or very real.
Kind of a trendy product more so than like something there to stay. And so, you know, that's kind of how the idea got sparked. And Andrew, I'll let you take the next part of it, because it was really interesting how it happened. But he was coming through on a deployment. And
okay, you know, it's like a little bit of acts of fate kind of launched this whole thing. You know, after high school, I joined the Marine Corps. I was actually on the way home from a deployment. We had 2 days to stop in Hong Kong. At that time, Ryan had just been to the Canton Fair, which is one of the biggest trade shows in the world.
Would love to go. It's on my bucket list. I've not been, but I definitely will at some point.
Gotta go.
Yes. And when I showed up, he was, you know, really excited. He had showed me kind of a prototype of something that we could do. And, you know, right away, I was initially just totally attracted to the watch. It definitely reminded me of home in the Northwest where we grew up, just kind of that wood heritage and craftsmanship. I knew right away that was something I loved, and he loved it as well. But he needed some cash to get started, you know, and Ryan, you might want to jump in. You tell that story pretty
well. I was like, well, hey, little brother, you got a little, you know, extra cash. He actually did, because he's in the Marines. He had, you know, been on deployment. You don't spend any money.
Don't spend any money. You don't have to pay taxes. Cool stuff like that, you know?
You know, so we're both back home that summer. I think he stopped in May, and June, July that summer, 2012. So a year into being out there, I came home. We met up. We're out on the lake. We're talking. Let's do this thing. Can I get 8 or 10 grand? I think it was 8 grand, actually. Yeah. That was what it was. And we bought first little round of, we were going to place a PO, and a few months later I go, what if we were to launch a Kickstarter? And he's like, well, what's Kickstarter? I go, it's a new platform. It's crowdfunding. People like, you know, back your project. It was new. Like there wasn't a lot of like, it was becoming a thing. And so there's a little bit of right time, right place there. And so we decided that's how we were going to launch. And so we threw it up on Kickstarter, and you know, 30 days later we had raised 390 grand. And
that's crazy.
Like, well,
crazy.
Looks like we got a business.
Yeah. So 2 quick things. One, describe the watches. I know we talked about it a little bit, but describe the watch and/or show one if you have one. For those that are watching the video, you know, most people are listening. But hey, okay. Now, which one? So Andrew, which one is that? Is that the?
This is our new whiskey barrel line.
Whiskey
actually.
Barrel, yeah.
We just kind of redesigned this collection. You know, integrating wood and steel as always. You know, reclaimed materials is kind of our best-selling collections. It just kind of has that heritage, whether it's whiskey barrels, reclaimed craft beer. We do some military ammunition crates. We also have a line of MLB watches reclaimed from old baseball bats, or even stadium surplus. We've taken wood from the 1923 Yankee Stadium chairs.
Just amazing. So cool.
A lot of limited edition kind of batch runs. And then we're able to kind of price accordingly to limited edition, or just kind of the mechanics of the watch.
Love it. Yeah. And then Ryan, what are you wearing right now?
I'm rocking one of our automatics. This is our Grain Master.
So that's the new design, kind of inspired by Italian sports cars. Do I have that right?
It's the GT40. So our recent hire, well, he's been with us for about a year now. He's our lead watch designer. He's from Detroit, and he's working on our first line. We want it to be a little higher end. This one starts at like 600, and this automatic version goes for like 850. So he wanted to do something that was inspired by automotive. He's from Detroit, right? And so kind of was inspired from the GT40, which is that iconic race car, Ford versus Ferrari, that movie that just came out.
Which is an amazing movie. Yeah.
Great. So I actually need to rewatch it. It was so good. But so,
and I will just say as kind of a side note now, obviously no one can visit now because of was in lockdown, but you guys have like an amazing little showroom, obviously an online business, but amazing little showroom, and your offices there in San Diego are fantastic. Just like the coolest vibe You got like Nitro Brew coffee on tap. You got the watches out. So I don't know if it's your motorcycle or somebody on the team's motorcycle, but like, is there a story behind that motorcycle that's in the office? Because that's just rad.
That motorcycle is now been crashed, but
It's
actually
been a little
has
while since I've been there.
it's a Triumph. You know, it's a beautiful bike. It looks vintage, but it's fairly new actually. But it's
Oh,
actually
okay. Yeah, I thought it was vintage. Okay.
It's pretty rad. Yeah,
It's a
cool
sweet bike. You know, we have a few paintings. You know, Louis Vuitton's board in there, surfboard, and just it's just a cool. It's kind of that new age office, you know, space that you very open and a little warehousey. Definitely a lot of wood accents, and it definitely represents our brand very well. And everyone kind of enjoys coming into work, which is what we want.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, so now people kind of have a picture of the watch, and they're watching the video. They've seen your watches. So then the Kickstarter. What did you do? Because you started with, hey, let's see if we can figure out how to make this work with $8,000. Then you pivoted and said, well, let's do Kickstarter, and you got $390,000. Why did you get so much? Why did it work?
I think, and Andrew chime in after I go, but I think a lot of it, and I've always said this, was just the uniqueness of the product. And, you know, it was a right time, right place moment in terms of the platform, and the fact that we were actually featured on the homepage for like the entirety of the campaign, more or less. Wow. Which this day and age doesn't happen. I actually don't even think Kickstarter would allow that, but the way the algorithm worked and the way that our campaign was trending, it was just there. And so we got a lot of organic traffic, but look, there's always a little element of luck, if you will, but
sure.
I think a lot of it's just, our ability to take that risk and build something that was new. And then the authenticity, I know that's a buzzword, but like of the story was there. And I think Andrew and I did a good job of just like explaining, why this product, what's the inspiration, and then the design was, like I said, was definitely unique, and we're selling a quality product, and for a discounted price at the time on Kickstarter. So I think that had a lot to do with the success of the campaign.
For sure. I kind of add to it, because that was our first campaign, and we followed it up with a second campaign that actually did a little bit better. During that campaign, we struggled a little bit to, being competitive. We needed to beat the first campaign, even though it didn't really matter. But we had to. That was just in our blood. And so we really started understanding kind of digital advertising and driving traffic to the campaign, because we weren't getting that organic traffic from the homepage. We were getting certain features. We'd have little spikes, but how are we going to contain a consistent, flow of traffic? Which I do recommend, a lot of first-time entrepreneurs. It's nice to start on a platform like that, because you really can cover your basis and your model without kind of like going out and blowing a ton of money. And it allows you operationally kind of get in control of everything that's happening, all the customer service, all the flows and the macros that you need to build out. Kind of bouncing around a little bit, but that was what was unique about the second campaign. It felt like we really had something that we could sustain outside of this Kickstarter platform.
Yeah, through paid traffic.
Yeah.
Nice. And primarily Facebook ads at that time, I would assume.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
And did you guys rely heavily on a video, a kind of a video telling the story of the product? Was that kind of the main piece on Kickstarter?
Yep. Yeah. The first video is funny because our first video, Ryan actually shot, cut, and edited the whole thing.
Beautiful.
And then our second time around, we had a professional come in and do their thing, and that's when really we took our content to the next level as well. Started hired out some creatives on the team, one of our first hires, and kind of took the brand to the next level visually.
Nice. So you kind of hinted at this a little bit, Andrew, talked about a few things, but let's talk about the reclaimed wood aspect of the watch. Was that an idea from the very beginning? So Ryan, you talked about, wood and steel and kind of mixing these, and not just like this gimmicky feeling, just all wood watch, but wood and steel. Was the idea from the beginning to use reclaimed wood, or did that kind of evolve later?
You want to take that, Ryan?
Sure. Yeah. I think, to be totally honest, I don't think we had thought about reclaimed wood.
Yeah.
I think we, initially we were thinking like exotic, unique, rare sort of hardwoods, obviously sustainable woods. There's a lot of woods that we've, figured out through the process that you either can't find because they're just so rare, or you can't source because they're on the endangered species list, like a Brazilian rosewood, for example, extremely endangered, can't get it, nor would we. And but with anything, once you start to feel, you go down the path and you start looking at different materials. And I was, Andrew and I think pretty early on, I would say about 6 to 8 months into it, started looking at, well, what would be other cool wood materials be? We're actually starting to expand into other non-wood natural materials. Grain doesn't have to be just wood. And so
Sure,
kind of going to look at that. So we can dive into that a little bit as well. But yeah, and I think the first one, we actually, we had been thinking about reclaimed whiskey barrels. And I actually was at this trade show, it's Magic in Las Vegas. And I always tell this story for a couple of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is because you never know what's going to come of an opportunity, you know? So for all the entrepreneurs out there, myself included, you put yourselves in these positions where you're like, man, this sucks. Like, we're at this trade show for 3 days. We've got like 2 retail. This is year 1, right? So, we've got like our posters on the wall and a handful of walked-in box of watch it. Like we didn't know what we were doing. Levi's, meanwhile, is across the way, and they've got like $100,000 build out. And Lucky Jeans, Fossil, and we're like, okay, so this is how you do it. And so we didn't know, and so we got a few clients, I think mom and pops, and it was day 3. And Andrew and I were like, man, like, was this a waste of time and money, or what was the deal? And this guy walks by, and he represented Jim Beam whiskey. And he was like, I really think we should do something together, because this is cool. And have you ever thought about reclaimed whiskey barrels? And we're like, well, actually, we kind of have. And he goes, well, let's do something. And so that kind of like gave us, I think, that push to just like, well, if Jim Beam is interested in this, then that's pretty cool.
We must be onto something. Yeah, credible brand is coming to us and saying, let's do a deal. That's a real proof of concept there.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it kind of like initially just like, it was the catalyst, I would say, for the reclaim thing. And then I don't know, Andrew, if you have anything more to add, but it's definitely just sparked this whole wave of just unique, cool, interesting reclaim material.
Yeah, it's the most fun to market. It's the most fun to go out and find as well, and gather up your resources and get behind. And the whole team gets really stoked when we're, recently we're working on a new pilot. And so not that this is going to be the source that we use, but we had to find some materials just to even work with our suppliers. So our designers driving up to LA on this dirt road. It's kind of an experience in itself to find some of these materials. And it's just that's what gets you out of the bed in the morning. It's like, okay, what can we create?
Yeah, and it's really what gets people excited about the product as well. And so I want to talk about some of the other reclaimed wood aspects in a minute, but I want to touch on something you just said, Ryan. I think this applies to any business, right? Whether it's e-commerce or, we run a service-based business, an agency. I can't underscore enough live events or just being with your customer or with other people in the industry. And because really, if we look at like some of the breakthroughs we've had as an agency, they've almost always come at events because of people we've met, ideas that were sparked, something we saw. Like there's something about that physical event when you're there, you see things like the rest of the world is shut out. It's just kind of magical. And even if you show up at an event and you're being outdone by Levi's and Lucky Jeans, if you're open, like, you still probably get an idea or two that could be absolutely gold for your business.
I love that. I've always been a huge believer in just showing up. I think there's a Mark Twain quote or something about it, but just 90% of life is just being there,
just showing up and having an open mind. And so cool. So I think the whiskey barrel collection, which Andrew's sporting right now, right? You got the whiskey barrel. Yeah. So cool. I love there's just something like raw and powerful about a whiskey barrel that you want to, it's something you'd want to wear and then tell people about, right? There's some watches you wear and you're like, just watch, but that, you want to talk about. So walk us through. I actually own the Koa wood watch. It's,
nice.
It's like black. It's black. That's why I got it, because I wanted a black watch. I didn't have one.
Nice.
But talk through some of the woods and what's been successful and any lessons there. Anything that you've tried that wasn't successful. I think sometimes there are lessons there. And then I also want to talk about your collector's pieces in a minute too.
For sure. Andrew, you want to take it? Or?
Yeah, I can jump in just in regards to some of the best sellers. We touched on it before, but definitely the reclaimed materials, things that have unique stories. The Hawaiian Koa wood, that's our tribute piece to Hawaii. We've done some unique things with the wood, but as well with the steel. That's a stonewash steel, which is that's new to the market. That's something we essentially created. That's supposed to embody like the lava rocks of Hawaii, so it's got that stone accent on the steel. Just the different other materials, whether it be the military, I would say that's been a fun collection. Obviously I'm really tied to that one, considering my service, but that was something we learned on, I would say. Although a very unique collection, we offered a ton of styles. There was 5 styles when we originally launched with, different leather bands, and one was gold, one was stonewash. It's a lot. One was reclaimed from pilot jackets. One was old
Interesting.
canvas.
So the leather band was like from a bomber's jacket?
Yeah, it came with the watch. With the steel band, we had an additional leather band, and it was just a lot to communicate to the customer rather than just triggering in this is our pilot jacket, reclaim series. There's just a lot of communication. Everything deserves a spot in the sun, and it was too much to describe. I think that was a big learning lesson. So kind of narrowing down.
So the pilot watch, the reclaimed bomber jacket one, that didn't do as well maybe as others because the story was just maybe didn't land. It was a little too complicated.
I would say we learned that a few styles did land, but we were pretty broad when we launched that collection.
Got it.
I think like from a marketing perspective, like what Andrew's saying is you can't don't overcomplicate it, maybe hone in on, because consumers really can only take so much at a time.
For sure.
I totally get that. I'm the same way. Like it's like, whoa, decision paralysis or whatever. And I'm like, I just need to like kind of understand what this is. But I mean, it was still been successful. We still have it in the lineup. We figured out which colorways and which stories resonated, but yeah, Reclaimed I wouldn't say obviously, but has been the most successful whiskey today. Is our number 1 seller. It's also been around the longest, but we're trying to find that next whiskey barrel. It's like something we talk about in the office a lot, and something else that could even scale from a business perspective that maybe isn't so rare that it's just because the cool thing about the whiskey barrel thing, other than the fact that I do genuinely believe it's a cool story that a lot of people resonate, but it's a relatively endless supply of the material.
Yeah.
And it's sustainable because we're not having to go out and like cut down trees or anything. I mean, they're literally, not saying that we do that anyway, but the whiskey barrels they're reclaimed from a distillery in Kentucky. They're done with the barrels. They've already aged the bourbon for 4 years, and they don't know what to do with them because bourbon can't go back into a used barrel. That's actually the American law says that. I think it's an old law from like hundreds of years ago. And so they just don't know what to do with it. They're just like, well, we could sell them to France which is what they do a lot of the time. Or we just kind of dispose of them.
Wow. Wow.
So
it's sustainable. It's an amazing story, and it's a super cool product. So let's talk a little bit about, I when I was there at your office, I saw the watch made from, and you mentioned it, Andrew, the 1923 Yankee Stadium seats, and one, I think, from Fenway Park potentially. So where did the idea for that come? And how did you market those? How did you make those successful?
Yeah, I'll jump in. That's actually a beautiful story. It actually ties back to an investor relationship that we're trying to build. And we actually just made him a one-off sample of the Yankee. We had ordered a chair on eBay, made him a one-off sample for his birthday.
What inspired you guys to order a chair off of eBay from Yankee Stadium?
He was wearing Panerais every time we'd see him. He'd never wear original grain watch, but he was from New York, and so we're like, hey.
So you bought the chair for this reason?
For this watch.
Dude, hey, there's some lessons there. Like, you going after an investor, do something crazy. Go buy a chair on eBay from Yankee Stadium. Okay, awesome. I'm super intrigued now.
We bought it, made him a one-off sample. I remember meeting him at the airport. He was literally flying to New York. Met him at the airport, gave him the watch. He was kind of like, what the hell? Went home, but I think when he was sitting on the airplane, he was like, wow, he wrote an email and he was like, I can't wait to hand this down to my son. I already picked this out for my youngest. And it's like, wow, this is
for his favorite son.
This is, yeah. Like, timepieces are, our heritage. They're meant to be passed down, generationally.
Yeah.
And the fact that we could create something that had that much sentimental value, It's like, wow, how do we tap into the emotions of the customer? And that goes along with the reclaim stories, that we've created. But that's how the MLB thing had kicked off as a whole. We were just making a one-off sample, and then sooner or later now it's like a whole MLB licensing program that we have that drops, as MLB starts, and then we have as soon as a champion's crowned, we drop another watch. So those are those seasonal spikes we're able to also market and kind of get in front of people at the right time.
So were you able to get more Yankee Stadium chairs after that?
Well, actually, we signed with the Cubs. The Cubs was really hard to get more. The Yankees weren't too bad, but the sources are crazy. They always come, it requires a certificate of authenticity, and you'll find it's like a lot of construction guys will have them. And so it's interesting sourcing some of that wood. So yeah, it's always
people who like worked on the so from Yankee Stadium was rebuilt, in 2009 or whatever it was. And so the guys who worked on the demolition and would have a lot of those chairs.
Grab a chair on your way out, on your way home, man. Yeah.
And so,
that's crazy. So smart. And so you took the idea, and I think this is, man, what a good entrepreneurial lesson. So you're trying to find a way, how do we break through the clutter? How do we get this potential investor to wear our watch and to think it's cool? You buy a chair, you make this watch, and then you're like, and then his response is, holy cow, this is amazing. I'm going to give it to my son. It's so meaningful. And then you think, business opportunity. Let's capitalize on this.
Scale it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you guys did one for Fenway Park as well, right? Or was it?
It was Wrigley. It was Wrigley and Yankee Stadium, and then Fenway came next. And then we ended up doing the just reclaimed baseball bats so that we could touch kind of the whole MLB. So we did a bunch of different teams. I think 14 teams last year. We have another collection coming out this year where we're actually using Rawlings leather. So they're going to be a leather-based watch. So
the face of the watch will have the reclaimed baseball bat, and then the band will be Rawlings leather. That is wicked cool. Okay, that's awesome.
Kind of collector's pieces at this point.
Yeah, cool. So any other ideas or iterations that will come from that? I mean, that seems like just a great next evolution. And as part of this, one of the things that we talked about is as we're kind of working with your company and helping to grow it and market it is, while there's some people, and I would count myself in this crowd, I like watches. I would be happy to own lots and lots of watches. Is part of the motivation here, how can we potentially sell more than one item to an individual customer? So you have some of these collector items where, okay, now maybe I've got my whiskey barrel watch, which is my daily watch, but I'm a huge Kansas City Royals fan, so I'm going to buy the Royals watch as well. Is that kind of the motivation there, or is it more the MLB is a totally different market for you?
Yeah, I think I can take that. I think it's twofold. I definitely feel like the opportunity was for us to expand upon the success of those three teams, the Cubs, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. And
which are like the perfect ones to start with, by the way. They're the ones with the most, rabid fan bases and huge markets. So that was super.
Well, and we've seen, and I think if you look at licensing, industry trend reports and stuff, you see that like the majority of the merchandise is sold in the big market teams, Dodgers, things like LA. Yep. You know what I mean? But and it starts to trickle down beyond that. But and we learned that lesson too when we rolled out those 14 teams. So we're going to be a few less teams actually on this 2020 version with Rawlings. But and I think additionally to your point about just kind of retention and lifetime value on customers, like 100%. I think that's something in the watch category that is a tougher code to crack because we're not, unlike apparel or some other categories, beauty, consumable products, things like that, where they're either they go from a t-shirt to jeans or another color. It's a little more affordable to begin with. The beauty that's consumable. Our watches, a lot of people like to collect watches from multiple different brands. And so, but if we can suck them into our brand, and we have a pretty good, Andrew, we're above 20%, I think, on repeat purchase. So
which for your category is outstanding.
Yeah. I think it's pretty good. Yeah. So, finding more ways, to your point, Brett, on how to, increase LTV is, I think, something we're looking pretty hard at right now because we got a pretty good base. And so, right now in particular with COVID, it's like that seems like probably the best place to go right now, honestly.
I 100% agree. I think, and this is something I'm in a couple of different mastermind groups, shout out to Ezra Firestone and Blue Ribbon, and then
Yeah.
also the guys at War Room, Ryan Dice and Perry Belcher and Roland Frazier. But we've had several meetings lately just talking about, hey, how do we handle, the COVID-19 scare, and how are we marketing? And I think a couple things for people to keep in mind. One, there's still a lot of consumers out there that are doing just fine financially, and they kind of want to buy something, right? So
Yeah.
shopping is therapeutic. Buying something, and in your case, your product is a great gift item. Buying a gift for my spouse, that makes me feel good. Like there's something. Don't just be quiet because you think you should be. Like people want to buy stuff. People want to feel normal as much as they can right now,
100%.
to a large degree.
100%.
So reach out to your customers. Do something unique. Do something special. Offer a discount
Yeah.
just to help people out. Stuff like that. So do you want to talk about anything you guys are doing now that's relevant?
Andrew, do you want to take that? We actually just had our leadership call with our team right before this at 11, and Andrew.
Yeah, we've been coming up with a lot of creative ways, how to connect with the audience, and it starts with customer care at this point. That's top of mind, and how you're going to represent yourself and during COVID is what people are going to, I believe, and this isn't factual, but I believe is how people are potentially going to remember you beyond COVID. So not trying to take advantage of people by any means. We're going to start inviting people into our own house. We're going to be doing live interactions here, product demonstrations, potentially Zoom meetings as well, similar to this. So bringing people closer, bringing in the family, customer care, setting expectations through emails, handwritten letters. All that's so important. There's a lot of confusion out there. Are people shipping? Are they not? Am I going to get my watch? Setting the expectation, I think, is probably one of the most important things. And then just relating on a real level, humanizing has always been important. I think now more than ever, and just being comfortable with uncertain times. It's crazy. We've never went through this as a nation, but it's important. So I've loved seeing people get creative by doing the Instagram lives and inviting people in. So we're going to be doing a ton of that, over the next few weeks. And we've been talking about that.
I'm really excited about a lot of that, and then want to hear a little more about it. I think it's really important if you can keep in mind that one, people need that connection more now more than ever. They want it from a brand too. If you've got this authentic, cool brand, like you can still connect with someone in a meaningful way. And I think just as we approach as marketers, as business people, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, if we're confident in the face of crisis, that does spill over, and that creates a net positive impact. Yes, it's scary. Yes, there's bad things going on, but we will make it through, right? And I think e-commerce will be better for it in the long run, and some other things that are positive. So you want to talk any more about the events and stuff that you're doing, Ryan? Those sound really cool, like Instagram lives, and so you're going to do that from your houses, obviously.
Yeah, well, we were. I hate to say we were both at the office 6 feet away yesterday because
your brothers is fine. Like whatever.
We're brothers, No, Taylor, our VP, Taylor. She was like, "I want you guys to do these lives, but can you guys be but you guys can't be together?" And I go, "Well, actually, we're together right now." She's like, "Okay, well, that works." We'll see. I mean, whether we are or we're not, I'm super excited about doing that. I've seen a lot of brands that I consider leaders in the industry for e-commerce, like take like an Everlane, for example. They just do such a good job as a whole, but their whole thing is about transparency. So they want to be transparent through this. And so we've kind of been like seeing what people are doing, and we're like, man, we were already planning to, but it's been really cool to see those brands do it. So yeah, I'm excited about it. And I think it's kind of a little bit of I think it's a good reminder, this whole thing, to like not get back to basics, but remember some of those things that sometimes just start to fade, and you're like, and I'm not saying that our customers ever did, but yeah, I'm excited about tapping into that for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's also been this, I've heard a few people mention this, we've come off of so many great years in a row. Yeah. Some of us can get kind of fat and happy, I don't think that was happening a lot. You guys are hungry. We're, as an agency, we're hungry, but it's like you can get comfortable with things. This is really forcing us to say, okay, we got to be on our game. We got to connect in a way we've never connected before. And so I think that's leading to some good changes. One thing I will mention, this is advice that I give all the time, is, hey, if you want to see what people are doing right now, good marketers, you mentioned Everlane, Boom by Cindy Joseph, owned by Ezra Firestone. It's another good one. get on those email
Yep.
lists, go follow them on Instagram, follow them on Facebook, see what they're doing. Do the same with you guys. So if you guys are getting ready to do some cool stuff, go to originalgrain.com, sign up on the email list so you can get notified of stuff they're doing. Follow these guys on Instagram. And actually, do you want to talk about some of the ways people can connect with you?
Yeah, just, on our social, it's at Original Grain, website, originalgrain.com. And as you mentioned, just, we're sending out emails every couple of days and providing updates, whether on new products as well as just the virtual live demonstrations that we're going to be doing. So you can sign up for those and be in the know.
Yep. And I think you guys do so many things well, but your video content is great. We're running several of your videos on YouTube and they're doing well. Like there's a lot that I think someone can learn by checking out what you guys are doing. So just maybe a couple things here as we're kind of running up against time a little bit, but Ryan, you're showing the automatic watch and that's got kind of a higher price point. So kind of your standard watches are in the $300 to $400 range, right? The collector's watches I know are more. You said the automatic you have there's $850. Was that kind of strategic into obviously I know everything you do has strategy behind it, but were you thinking again just raising the LTV, expanding into new markets? What was kind of the thought process behind that?
Yeah, I think, one thing we've sort of always played in that like $250 to $400 range, since we launched. So, and what we didn't want to do was race to the bottom, where it feels like a lot of the GTC, or I don't want to say DTC, that's not right, but the more entry level products, regardless of being direct to consumer or digitally native or whatever, are doing. And so we want to stick to our guns, which is hard to do sometimes. I mean, let me tell you, it's
man.
and we run promotions and discounts and all that, but I think, at least on an MSRP level, we didn't want to just start rolling out watches at $100, $150, and put ourselves down there. So yeah, I think it was strategic to kind of move up a little bit. We have a lot of watches coming out in that $250 to $400 range this year, kind of right where our bread and butter is. But when we hired Scott a year ago, he kind of helped us map out and kind of created this little matrix of like where we are in terms of style. Like we didn't have a pilot watch. Andrew talked about that. So we wanted to do a pilot, but where does that fit in terms of price point? And we kind of, if you just chart it out, you kind of see where there's some holes to fill. And, I think from a merchandising perspective, it kind of rounds you out and, it allows the customer to see a little more breadth, and I think as all marketers know, sometimes seeing a $400 watch paired against an $800 watch makes that $400 watch look more affordable.
Absolutely.
So there's some strategy there for sure. I mean, our $850 automatic is insane value in terms of the build and the movement, it being a Swiss automatic. So we priced that right. So I think that's kind of how we've looked at our product roadmap,
I love that. And there is definitely something to be said. I think, and I know some other merchants that do this where they create some really high priced offerings almost with like the primary goal of creating less resistance for their core offer. Right. So,
sure.
And for you guys, it sounds like the $850 watches is a great offer. It's a fantastic watch, but it's also, and you mentioned it, it's going to make your core product feel more and be perceived more as more valuable. So that's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Cool.
So we're doing a lot in terms of refreshing watches this year too. So taking some of our old best sellers, which is a little scary. So Tanner and I laugh sometimes. We're like, because you've got this good thing going, you don't want to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But we want it. We just believe in product at the end of the day. I've always been a product is king guy, and I just want our product to always get better. And so if we can do that, like we're gonna do it. Andrew and I are like aligned on that. So we want to raise the tide on that new barrel line that he's wearing, like #1 selling watch, and we changed it. I mean, it still pays homage to the original design, but
it's risky,
and
right?
it's a better
risky
product.
To change a little bit.
If it's risky.
Yep.
Yeah.
So can you guys give any insights on what you do? So anytime you're innovating and creating and making something brand new, it's risky. It's risky. Like will the market embrace this? And you guys talked about some of in the military line where some was maybe too complex and it didn't land and others did. How do you guys approach that product design piece? Do you get a lot of feedback along the way from a lot of different people, or is it more like you're just bringing in kind of your artist, like your version of Johnny Ive from Apple, like you guys are mainly just doing it, or what does that look like?
I'll jump in a little bit. I know
Yeah.
Ryan's super involved as well with the product design, but Ryan and I had our own method about 2 years ago, and then as soon as we hired on Scott, our head designer now, the process has changed so much, and it's been beautiful to work next to him to really understand how someone approaches a design. He doesn't just jump in and start drawing. He's pulling in so much inspiration amongst the community. What is this watch? What is the reason for this watch? Whether it fits in certain buckets, and bringing in examples of different collections that embody that, to 3D printing, different sizes. We'll 3D print it in 4 different sizes. Check before it even goes to the supplier. And that's sped up some of our production lead time, the amount of back and forth between samples. So to really work side by side with a real designer has definitely changed the game for us, because our approach before was fairly, I remember Ryan and I designed a watch on a train ride one time on the way to a supplier, and that's a real story.
That's a real thing.
That's fairly unprepared. We have that finished sample. It actually just showed up a few months ago, and everyone's like, "Why don't we make this watch?" And Ryan and I were just like, "There's no way." It's like a really retro watch that we had designed, literally on
on a train. That's awesome.
Just a mess, So our process has changed a lot over the years, and at the end of because we brought in really good people around us, that goes towards our marketing process all the way to design, and that's kind of my bit on that.
Love it. Love it. And how much are you looking for? Is this, so whatever wood, whatever design we use, so the automatic is inspired by the GT, iconic race car, you got the MLB connection, military connection, whiskey barrel, how much is the potential story, how much is that influencing what you decide to build next? Do you kind of start with story, or does story kind of evolve as you go, or what does that look like?
That's a good question. So I think sometimes it does vary. So like at times we just look at incorporating a cool material, reclaimed material into an existing, as Scott would call it, platform or silhouette, right? So maybe for an existing watch silhouette, and we just take the material and we integrate it into that design. So the design's already kind of, it lives and it breathes and it's there. At other times, if it's a completely new, let's take the Pilot, for example. It's a new product that's rolling out in July. We knew we wanted to, that's an aesthetic. And so Scott, to Andrew's point, is pulling a ton of inspiration. It's what he does. He's been doing for a decade. So he understands how to approach that project, but with an OG twist on it. Right. And so he's looking at that first, and then how he can incorporate some sort of material element into that. So for us, there's 2 versions. There's a wood story version, and that's using the types of material, type of wood that planes actually were made. I mean, planes, there's actually a really cool Air and Space Museum here in San Diego, and we went and toured it, and it's phenomenal. Anyway, all the planes, were made out of wood in the 20s and 30s. So
yeah.
The 40s, I think. It's cool. Imagine flying in that,
So just like sneaking out parts of a wing, put it in your pocket as you head out, and
yeah, like cutting a little off. And so he'll find ways to incorporate that into the design, and he's looking at tolerances, because we're talking about small, thin pieces of wood, and that's a challenge from a manufacturing perspective. So he's looking at that and how thin he can go, and how it, so yeah, I think there's kind of 2 ways to go about it, and it all varies based on kind of the project and what the goal is,
nice.
From the start. Yeah.
It seems like one thing you guys have done really well, and then maybe this will kind of be our final topic as we wrap up, but it seems like, you guys are really bright dudes, and you are innovative, and you have that entrepreneurial spirit. It seems like you kind of do something on your own, and you kind of learn it and do it well. But then at some point you bring on somebody, like a professional designer like Scott, or you brought on some, internal teams, like James and other guys that are just, guys and gals that are awesome. Any thoughts there? Like any advice that you would give to other e-commerce store owners? Like when does it make sense to do something yourself versus bringing, hiring an expert versus outsourcing to an expert? Any insights on that?
I mean, this is interesting. I speak for myself in this. Ryan does an amazing job managing the team on the day-to-day. I really love setting the foundation, and expectation for whatever that task may be. That comes from being a founder and a little bit of founderitis that Ryan and I both probably carry. But, setting the expectation, setting the platform, kind of the SOPs, and then allowing people to jump in. the challenge for myself has really just been continuing to forge forward, and not managing that person, getting the reporting correctly. That's been something that we've had to learn along the way. This is my first business. So it's like, but also just forging forward and continuing to bring in newer business or new ideas rather than sitting back and, helicoptering over somebody you've already tasked out to do what the foundational job is. So I think that's something that I definitely struggled with over the last year as we built our team out, was like, okay, kind of letting go and being able to,
It's tough. It's really tough.
But at the same time, Ryan and I just had this conversation, like, wow, we should probably have our team, produce these reports for us, because we're not getting those reports unless we log in, which you got to let go. So there's been a lot of learning lessons, I think, over this business, just kind of like understanding how to manage people, what type of reporting you want presented to you, so you can really make a fine decision. You kind of do need to still maintain in the weeds a little bit, but you need someone to produce those reports for you. I know that's something that has been big for me the last few months.
I love it. Any thoughts on that, Ryan, in terms of managing a team, bringing on experts, kind of that evolution?
I think Andrew kind of hit the nail on the head, and we're both good at different things. I think that's why it works so well, and we're looking at starting other businesses, and we want to partner on those as well, because we both have different strengths. Andrew's a really good operator, and he knows how to set the foundation and get shit done. Like, he's really good at that. I'm not so much. I can't really do a ton of. I mean, I can, but I struggle to get that initial task stuff done. I'm thinking more long-term, big picture, and so it's a really good balance that we bring. And Andrew, I think we're both good people persons, but Andrew does a really good job of that as well. So, but yeah, I think I love to do everything, and it's a double-edged sword. You laugh, Brett, 'cause it's so hard to let go. I mean,
it is.
Oh my
it is.
gosh.
But you have to, to reach new levels, you have to let go of certain things, and learning that balance of how do I coach and manage and inspect what I expect and things like that. It's difficult. Those are some transitions for sure. We could do a whole podcast on that. But I've seen your team in action. Compliments to you guys. You built a great team, and they're operating at a high level. So that's really cool. And then, one of the things that I'll kind of just wrap up on my final comment about you guys is I love that you're always on the quest to make the watches better. Like, how do we do something new? How do we do? Let's not just leave the Whiskey Barrel collection as it is. How do we make the next iteration and make it better? And that drive to create the next better thing. Not everything is going to work, but you're going to find things that do work and that do resonate, and then that's going to lead to long-term success. So it's really exciting. Well, cool, fellas. Well, hey, any other asks or anything else you'd share with people? So we got, check out the website, sign up on social, follow these guys, see what they're doing. Any other asks or any final thoughts or comments here as we wrap up?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Go buy a watch, guys. Seriously, you'll be way cooler. Buy one for yourself, buy one for your significant other, go get a watch. I recommend it. So
we're actually doing that's a perfect plug for our next month sale. It's our 7-year anniversary next month. And so,
cool.
Which is crazy. And we're going to be doing a founder anniversary sale. And we're actually going to do some sort of buy one, get one in these times. So you kind of hit the nail on the head for that. So
cool. Yeah. Perfect. All right. We'll link thanks, everything in the show notes. Yeah. Ryan, Andrew, thanks, fellas. This was a blast. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, man. It's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Brett.
All right. Very good. Well, as always, we would love to hear from you. We would love to get that review on iTunes if you feel so inclined. And with that, until next time, thank you for listening.